Hello everyone, glad to be back. Today is 17th of September, Sunday, so I hope you have a great day and great weekend. Now it's 15 to 11 in the morning Moscow time. I'm Lema Gudadze and this is my first update for the day, in which I will share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. Second update will be a little bit late on my Patreon, and also today, by the way, late afternoon, I will make a live stream. I hope you will find time to join live stream. I will post about it on our community page here on YouTube, also on my Telegram and on Rumble page also. I need some practice when it comes to live streams to get as much experience as possible, so that somewhere in towards middle of October, hopefully I will be able to invite guests on our project, on our channels. But that's been said, let's talk about news now, and I will start with the short summary of the situation on the battlefield from southern sectors up to northern ones. Well, when it comes to Kherson region, no significant changes right now. Main news still is that Ukrainian side is conducting mass evacuation from over 30 settlements on the right bank of the Dnieper River, and there are many speculations on internet why Ukrainian side is conducting this evacuation of civilians from this area. I have only two possible answers. One is possibility that Russian side is planning to conduct some large-scale offensive operation in this direction, and second, the possible reason is that its Ukrainian side is planning to conduct mass crossing of the Dnieper River simultaneously with second wave of Ukrainian counteroffensive in Zaporozhye and South Donetsk sectors on main axis of this so-called Ukrainian counteroffensive in direction of Azov Sea. Only time will tell which scenario is more correct. But overall situation on Kherson region is deadlock. Nothing is happening right now that will influence overall situation in immediate future. When it comes to Zaporozhye and South Donetsk sectors of the front line, also no significant changes. Ukrainian side is still trying to dig in these fields in between Novoprokopovka and Verbovo, and little by little they are managing to get close to these settlements. Some reports even suggest that Ukrainian forces, some forward units of Ukrainian militaries, are already in controlling some parts of the settlements, although I did not see any photo or video confirmation of this information. What we can say for sure is that well, after almost 4 months of this so-called counteroffensive, Ukrainian side did finally manage to reach first line of defense of Russian forces on this land bridge between Crimea and mainland Russia. Day before yesterday, I did share many videos from Zaporozhye sector of the front line, and in one of the videos you clearly can see the so-called dragon teeth, and Ukrainian forces basically were shelled right next to this, not far away from this dragon teeth, and that's definitely indicator that they did manage to reach first line of defense of Russian armed forces. Although one thing is to reach this line and second is to breach it, and I don't think Ukrainian forces will be able to achieve any more or less significant success during this entire suicidal operation under the name of counteroffensive. Overall, right now situation on Zaporozhye region is under full Russian control. Ukrainian forces still are sending more and more troops from just about everywhere they can to and are concentrated them in Orekhov bridgehead, which once again by every passing day increases chances that Russian side will conduct at some point its own counteroffensive to encircle this grouping of forces of Ukrainian army in Orekhov bridgehead. Let's see how will situation develop. When it comes to South Donetsk sector of the front line, surprisingly, it's the Russian side that are conducting some local-scale offensive operations in direction of Urozhaine, by the way, on Vremelsky salient. I would not say it's something on the scale of extreme significance, but fact itself that Russian side is beginning to conduct some these local scale offensive operations is quite interesting. That may be indicator that Ukrainian army in this area in South Donetsk direction, despite all the attempts to concentrate forces to conduct to continue their local scale offensive operations, probably are not really able or ready to do so, and the initiative gradually is shifting hands from Ukrainian side to Russian side. Right now, still, I will call the situation on this area operational pause or deadlock. Nothing is happening that will influence overall situation on this sector of the front. When it comes to Donetsk direction, we do have some changes. When it comes to southern flank of Donetsk sector, Marinka, Krasnogorovka, Avdeevka, no significant changes. It's artillery duels as usual between the sides and the local scale skirmishes. But when it comes to northern flank of Donetsk direction, Bakhmut and surrounding areas, there are some changes here. And first of all, I will share with you information that according to some reports that I see in several Russian language channels on several channels, Andreevka, this settlement on the southern flank of Bakhmut, have been captured by Ukrainian forces, mainly by units of this terrorist organization Azov, Ukrainian neo-Nazi terrorist organization of Azov. There are some videos circulating in internet that basically, at least partially confirming this information that Andreevka is at least partially controlled by these Nazi criminals. And by the way, I did share on my Telegram page video of this settlement. This is Andreevka, by the way, this village, which is just tiny village with one road basically. And as you can see, nothing is left from this village. I do understand that Ukrainian forces will and Ukrainian side will try to make from this something extraordinary, that like they did capture some big city or strategic point on the map. But in reality, that's all, man. That's all it is, Andreevka, what is left from it. 1-2 roads and basically almost nothing left from the buildings or houses in the settlement. I guess Russian forces made decision to retreat behind the railway road and establish new positions there on the southern side of this railway that goes right next to Andreevka. Some parts of Andreevka we may call in a gray zone, but yet again, it's going to be extremely difficult for Ukrainian forces to dig in the settlement because it's almost an empty field. Right now, they're going to find it very difficult, and the Russian side will shell them with artillery with non-stop regime, I guess. And when it comes to Klishevka is still disputed between the sides. Some parts are controlled by Ukrainian forces, some parts are controlled by Russian forces. Overall, despite these informations that Andreevka was at least partially captured by Ukrainian forces, overall no significant or strategic changes on the southern flank of Bakhmut, because I'm absolutely sure Ukrainian side has no potential to continue their offensive, to cross this railway and trying to at least partially encircle Bakhmut itself. It's impossible. in my understanding, but yet again, I'm not military expert, so only time will tell. When it comes to northern flank of Bakhmut, Ukrainian forces, there are some rumors, some informations are circulating in internet that Ukrainian side is concentrating forces on the northern flank of Bakhmut now to conduct offensive operations in direction of Krasnaya Gora, Solidar. But well, yet again, it's hard to say, hard to tell if Ukrainian forces will be able to do so, because right now initiative is in totally Russian hands. And by the way, I did see some comments on internet, critical comments about this local scale successes, if we can call it success, on part of Ukrainian forces. There are comments why Russia is allowing this to happen, why it's not Russia that are on offensive, and so on. By the way, we should, I mean, we can of course be critical and supposed to have critical thinking just always about anything really. But when it comes to situation on the front line, Russian approach, as I understand, is to basically neutralize fighting capability of Ukrainian armed forces. Basically, it's what Russian side is doing is bleeding out Ukrainian army with this defensive battles. Russia is forcing Ukraine to conduct offensive operations, and as we all know, offensives always are difficult, especially against fortified positions. And according to reports in Russian media, by the way, Ukrainian side just during this so-called counteroffensive lost, according to Putin, 71 already thousand military personnel. According to some other reports, 77,000 military personnel. And what did the Kiev regime achieve by such losses? To establish control over the few settlements on Vremyevsky salient, over the few settlements in Orekhov direction. Basically not few, but only one. This Rabotino. And for Rabotino, Ukrainian side was fighting for 3 months. Isn't it? Is it worth it to sacrifice 70 to 77,000 soldiers for these few settlements? I don't think so. So in my understanding, Russian tactic is working perfectly well. It's a brutal tactic, by the way, but this is military confrontation. This is military conflict, isn't it? And that's a Russian approach. They want to bleed out Ukrainian army. They want to basically force Ukrainian society to rise up and say enough is enough. Because after all, even though millions and millions of people did left Ukraine, some 4 or 5 million went to Russia. By different accounts, up to 10 million went to Western world, Western states. In Ukraine, still somewhere around, I don't know, 20 million people. And Zelensky and his associates still have possibility to forcefully mobilize more and more people, more and more citizens, and send them to the front line. And until this is happening, until Zelensky and his associates still have manpower, no matter how well trained, it's gonna be difficult for Russian side to conduct large-scale offensive operation. Not just for Russian side, for any side. You have to make sure that you did neutralize majority of battle-ready units of your enemy, and then you are conducting counteroffensive on your own. That's how it works historically, as I understand. So if Ukrainian side during this so-called counteroffensive will take one village there, one there, by losing thousands and thousands of soldiers. I don't think this is success on part of Kiev regime. I don't think so. It's just confirming that Russian tactic of this mobile defense definitely works. So that's why I think it's nothing critical that, for example, Rabotina eventually was taken by Ukrainian forces. I don't think anything is critical did happen if Andreevka was taken by Ukrainian forces, because to achieve this, Ukrainian side lost many brigades, not just small units, but entire brigades, by the way. On Donetsk direction, on southern flank of Bakhmut, if we are combining losses of manpower and military equipment, Ukrainian side lost at least 3 brigades, full-blooded brigades, by the way. When it comes to this land bridge between Crimea and mainland Russia, Orekhov sector, also Donetsk sector, Ukrainian side lost basically almost all its strategic reserves. And one of their main force in that strategic reserve was, for example, 82nd Brigade, which is almost non-existent at this point. So that's why I'm saying, by the way, this is we cannot get emotional, or we have to be very, very practical. We have to have a practical thinking when it comes to military operations, because emotions are not good advisors, really. So as I read big picture, Russian strategy is definitely working. It's very unfortunate that this conflict have been prolonged by Western so-called elites, and they are still continuing, but as long as fight is going on, of course Russian side will be forced to do what it has to do, and in this case is to neutralize as many Ukrainian units as possible, and Russian side does it quite successfully. And by the way, when it comes to I hope I did answer to that question, why Russian forces are allowing these small gains to Ukrainian side. You judge by yourself. You can compare what Ukrainian forces did manage to gain and by what price. Is it worth it? I don't think so. And when it comes to northern sectors of the front line, here initiative is totally in Russian hands, and at least for this moment, only question remains when Russian forces will conduct large-scale offensive operations. From Seversk to Kupiansk and the entire Kharkov region is basically initiatives in Russian hands. And this is when it comes to short summary of the situation on the front line. I remind you that during the previous night and yesterday, Russian forces did conducted missile and drone strikes on military and logistical infrastructure of Kiev regime, and several targets were destroyed in Kharkov itself and surrounding areas. Also, Zaporozhye region, Kherson region, Nikolaev direction, Odessa region. So Russia is quite active also when it comes to missile and drone strikes. I did share information about it on my Telegram also. And by the way, before I continue with some additional news, let me notice that this project with several channels like this on YouTube and also Rumble, Telegram exists only thanks to support of members of our community, and I will be immensely grateful if you will also consider to support my work with small donations through PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, or by subscribing to my Patreon page. You will see links under this video in the description box. And when it comes to Patreon, for Patreon community, I will say, if they did not see it yet, that yesterday I did upload video about main battle tanks of Ukrainian conflict. In yesterday's video I did highlight Soviet era and modern era Soviet and Russian and Ukrainian tanks. In next episode I will make video about Western-made battle tanks that are introduced to this conflict. Now let's talk about some other news. And of course today I will have an informal talk on Patreon and then live stream a little bit late. So let's continue, by the way. And well, Kommersant newspaper is reporting that during the early mornings of today, Russian defense, according to Russian Defense Ministry, 4 Ukrainian drones were shot down in Crimea direction when they were approaching Crimea, and 2 drones were shot down in Moscow region on their approach to Russian capital. No reports about casualties or any significant damage on the ground. Also, TASS news agency is reporting that, well, according to high-ranking NATO official, representative of a military committee of NATO, admiral of the Netherlands fleet, Rob Bauer, NATO member states are unable to basically fulfill all the requests that Kiev regime is making when it comes to military equipment and munition. Not surprisingly, just recently Jens Stoltenberg also made almost a similar statement. And by the way, I don't know if you see it or not, but video is circulating on internet with the defense minister, if I'm not mistaken, of Germany, Pistorius, and mayor of Kiev, Klitschko. They were participating in one of the TV shows in Germany, I guess, because they were speaking in German. And well, Klitschko once again, as officials of Kiev regime always do, basically demanded more weapons and more money from NATO. And Pistorius probably lost his nerve, and he did said that Ukraine should be basically grateful for everything that NATO is doing already or done already. So that was quite interesting, because lately we do have more and more instances when representatives of Western regimes in Germany, in UK, in some other countries, are basically in Poland, by the way, also are more and more openly criticizing Kiev regime for not being grateful enough. And that does indicate some rift between the sides, isn't it? And after all, I'm quite sure it's only a matter of time when these Western so-called elites will begin distancing themselves from not just Zelensky, but from entire this criminal gang that ruling and ruining Ukraine, especially after Poland and some other NATO member states will establish control of the western regions of this failed state. And next news, by the way, is from TASS. According to this news agency, Pentagon did made a statement to Wall Street Journal about ATACMS, missiles that may be delivered to Zelensky in this autumn. And according to this report, U.S. administration, Biden's administration, not yet make final decision about this topic. Well, I guess we will see continuation of story when for a while Washington is denying something, and then eventually they are confirming that yes, we will deliver this, we will deliver that. Same will happen, unfortunately, same will probably happen with ATACMS missiles that have 300-kilometer range and can be launched with HIMARS multi-launch rocket systems. And it's only a matter of time, in my understanding, when these systems, these missiles will end up in hands of Zelensky and his associates. And I guess simultaneously we will, if not earlier, we will hear from Berlin that they had made up their mind and they will send Taurus cruise missiles to Zelensky also. Interesting is how Russia will respond to these threats. And by the way, also TASS news agency is reporting that official representative of Foreign Ministry of Ukraine, Oleg Nikolenko, did make statements that attacking missiles will fairly soon be in hands of Ukrainian military personnel. So probably he has some inside information, and that's why he is stating this. Let's continue. RIA Novosti is reporting that Biden will have a meeting with Zelensky next week. Question is, will Biden or Zelensky understand where they are and who they are talking to? Biden, because of his issues with Biden, because he's not really in best shape, let's say, because of, I don't know, age or whatever. And Zelensky, because he may get overdosed, by the way, like he does quite often, and we may see some additional funny videos from Washington and White House. And well, when it comes to Zelensky, RT is reporting that this criminal and mass murderer issues warning to EU states, and in this regard he is talking about, and he's basically talking about Poland, first of all, Hungary, Romania and Bulgaria, also Slovakia, countries that are refusing basically to allow Zelensky and his criminal associates to export the grain through territories of these countries. And well, I don't know what Zelensky can do really about it, if anything. But when it comes to the states itself, Poland, Slovakia and Hungary at least did make decision to continue ban on for Ukraine to export their grain, its grain through these countries to Western Europe. Yesterday I did watch interview of Orban, Prime Minister of Hungary, and basically he was very clear when it comes to this issue. He did said that Brussels basically don't really care about farmers of Hungary, farmers of Eastern European and Central European states, and that's why they are basically pressing now Bucharest, Budapest, Warsaw and other capitals to lift their ban on Ukrainian grain and some other agricultural produce. By the way, if I'm not mistaken, Hungary banned not just import of grain from Ukraine, but also some 24 other agricultural produce. And I guess somewhat same approach have all the other countries of Eastern Europe. And well, let's see how this situation will develop, because I don't think Brussels will back down. And interesting question is how long Hungary, Poland, Romania and other Eastern and Central European states will withstand this pressure from globalists and their puppets in Brussels. But anyway, let's continue. RIA Novosti is reporting that Pistorius, defense minister of Germany, did made a statement and partially spoke about possibility that Ukrainian conflict may be resolved in style of Westphal соглашение. Соглашение. Let me translate. Westphal Agreement, yes. Sometimes I cannot remember just simple words, by the way. Sorry about that. So, according to Pistorius, Ukrainian conflict may be resolved in similar scenario to Westphal Agreement, which basically we can interpret as one more statement towards, or one more push towards this Korean scenario, when the sides are basically stopping on the positions that they are holding at the moment of signing agreement. And fact itself that Western media, the so-called politicians and officials, more and more often, one way or another, are speaking about this Korean scenario under whatever pretext, definitely indicates that they do beginning to realize that they lost. And it's only a matter of time when Russia will start moving forward and Russian forces will be unstoppable. So I guess these puppets of real rulers of the Western world, like Pistorius and like all the other puppets, they are coming up with these ideas of Korean scenario just to make sure that at least they will keep something under their control. But I don't think Moscow will ever agree on this, man. I don't think so, because it's just too obvious that if Russia will agree on this proposal, let's say, then whatever territory will be held by Kiev regime will instantly become a major hotspot for criminal, terrorist, extremist activities against Russia. So can Russia allow this to happen? No. So that's why I think this conflict will end only when Russia will establish full control over the entire Ukraine, with the exception of western regions that will become under control of Poland and some other NATO member states, and that's it. There will be no more Ukraine on political map after this conflict. It's just, for me personally, it's too obvious. I don't know about opinion of other people. Let's continue. How long is this update? 32 minutes. So I will go through headlines as fast as I can. TASS news agency is reporting that former French ambassador did make statement that with this conflict in Ukraine, West basically lost its dominance over the world, which is true, by the way. Former French ambassador in US and in UN, Gérard Araud, made such statement during his interview with the LCI TV station, and who can argue with him, really? This conflict definitely become a beginning of the end of Western dominance on this world. This is factual true. This is just factual true. 31 NATO member states are fighting with Russia with Ukrainian hands, and with hands of tens of thousands of mercenaries, basically, that they send to Ukraine, and with their own military personnel, by the way, also, that was sent to Ukraine as a kind of advisors. And what they did achieve, what did Western so-called elites achieve with this conflict in Ukraine, with the sanctions war against Russia, with all this, like over 15,000 sanctions? They achieve basically nothing. Russia is standing strong, and this is clear indicator for the rest of the world that these so-called Western elites are not that powerful no more, and world is changing and very fast. And this process is unstoppable. This process is unstoppable. These so-called globalists, Western elites, and their puppets may don't like it. They may fight against it with any means they have in their disposal, but they cannot stop it. They cannot stop history. And well, let's continue. This is a Kommersant newspaper's report, according to which Poland will conduct military exercises not far away from Russian border, close to Kaliningrad region. And during these exercises, military exercises, some K2 tanks, main battle tanks, will be used that Poland did buy from South Korea. Also, US-made HIMARS systems will be deployed, and some 1,000 military personnel. This is not that large-scale exercise, but once again, step towards escalation with Russia, because even though I'm quite sure Polish elites are not that suicidal to attack Kaliningrad region or Belarus, all this concentration of forces on the eastern borders have been done by Warsaw to use these forces then during intervention in Western Ukraine. But anyway, it's still military exercises right next to Russian border, and of course Moscow not gonna like it, even if everyone do understands that Warsaw will never dare to attack Russia. And by the way, at least directly. And by the way, TASS news agency is also reporting that, Russian media is paying quite significant attention to this topic. I did report about it previously, and I will repeat that in 2024, NATO is planning to conduct the biggest military exercises since the end of Cold War. And during these exercises, in which some 40,000 military personnel will take place, 550 military ships, thousands and thousands of pieces of military equipment, and hundreds of pieces of planes and drones and so on. During these military exercises, NATO personnel will basically use scenario of repelling Russian attack. If Russia is planning such a move, when it's obvious for all sane people that Russia have no plans to attack NATO member states if are not provoked, and don't need to do so. Why should Russian leadership even think about conducting war against any of the NATO member states? I mean, for what reason? If are not provoked, by the way, once again, if Western elites will provoke Russia, then Moscow will be forced to respond like it did when it comes to Ukraine. But without provocation, I don't think anybody in Russian government is really thinking to attack Russia. But this step from NATO leadership and basically the so-called Western elites, once again, just one more tool to, continue this anti-Russian and Russophobic hysteria. And that's all, really. Let me continue, and by the way, one more thing. I don't know, of course, real plans of NATO leadership, but I don't think that this biggest NATO exercises since the end of Cold War in reality may be used to deploy additional NATO forces in the Eastern Europe, so that these forces then will enter Western Ukraine, together with, of course, Polish forces that will participate in these exercises, of course. So maybe this exercise is just a motive to just a reason to deploy additional tens of thousands of troops close to Ukrainian borders. Who knows? Anyway, how long is this video? 40 minutes already. Okay, just the headlines. And the RIA Novosti is reporting that Russian Tu-160 strategic bombers received new weapon, new cruise missile, HAB-BD, which is KHBD. That will be English interpretation, I guess. And this cruise missile has a 6,500 kilometer range, which is well, quite enough, I guess, to reach very significant distances if necessary. Also, by the way, RIA Novosti is reporting that according to Putin, 300,000 volunteers did sign a contract with Russian Defense Ministry since the beginning of this year to participate in special military operation. This was said by Putin during his meeting with Lukashenko on 15th of September. This meeting took place in Sochi. TASS news agency is reporting that well, Turkey may propose to Russia, Azerbaijan, Armenia peace plan, or to conduct a meeting and discuss topic of Nagorno-Karabakh. I guess not. Turkey don't really want this current escalation between Armenia and Azerbaijan to enter hot stage when states will begin fighting each other. Moscow don't want it for sure, and well, this type of meeting may take place, quite possible, especially, by the way, because recently relationships between Moscow and Ankara did deteriorate somewhat, and both sides probably want to improve situation in this regard, and no one wants escalation. And by the way, Interfax is reporting that all EU member states that are bordering Russia make decision to ban Russian citizens to entering EU states on their own cars. Well, one more Russophobic decision on part of these states. What you gonna say, really? These decisions does not make any sense whatsoever. You can explain it only by Russophobia and xenophobia of Western so-called elites and ruling class of EU member states, majority of EU member states. Let's continue. RIA Novosti is reporting that, well, US did import record volume of Russian fertilizers since the beginning of this year, and did pay $944 million for it, and Russia is becoming second biggest exporter of fertilizers to US after Canada. Quite interesting development, when despite all this conflict on political level, in terms of economics, sides still are managing to do some deals. RT is reporting that, well, Russia delivers first LNG to China via Arctic route, which is great news, by the way, for Russia and for the rest of the world, because this North Sea route, this northern shipping route that goes in Arctic waters of Russia, all along the Arctic waters of Russia, and are very short, significantly short than every other route when it comes to connection of Europe, for example, and Southeast Asia or in the Pacific. And well, first LNG tanker did deliver gas to China, which is great news, definitely. And this, as I said quite a few times before, this route, this trade route, definitely will become one of the major ones in the world in the next 10-15 years, quite sure about it. Let's continue. Of course, if Western so-called elites did not destroy this world by provoking nuclear war. because times are very strange and anything is possible when you are looking what this crazies in leadership of Western states are doing. And RT is reporting that Italian companies want to return to Russia. Well, too little too late, I guess. Not all Italian companies will be able to return, at least easily. And even if they will probably find difficult to regain market share that they hold before they left Russia. And Italian companies are not exception, by the way. Western companies in general many companies are regretting leaving Russia and are trying to come back. RT is reporting that India clears path for purchase of Russian-designed warplanes. 12 Sukhoi fighter jets are part of a 5.4 billion spending package approved by the country's defense ministry, and we are talking about 12 Su-30 MKI fighter jets. By the way, these fighter jets by license are built in India also. And well, good news. Relationships between Russia and India are in a good level, not just from economical standpoint, but also when it comes to cooperation of militaries. And this is going to be last news for today's update. Russian Central Bank did make decision to rise interest rate on one percentage point from 12 to 13 percent, which is well, I guess will influence Russian national currency to stabilize it a little more, even though lately, last 2-3 weeks, Russian ruble was quite stable, I will say. And this is it for now. Quite a long update, but plenty of news, by the way, and hopefully you will find this video interesting. And if so, please leave commentary about any topic you like, just about anything, and click that like button. More likes and comments definitely influence algorithm and allows me to reach wider audience. And for very same reason, if you can, please share links to my videos or my channel with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, or Telegram. And if you think this channel, this project is interesting, useful, and deserves to exist, please consider to support with small donations through PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, or by subscribing to my Patreon page. You will see links under this video in the description box or in the pinned comment. And before I go, I will remind you that later on today I will have a live stream, and I will be happy if you will join that live stream. I will post a link to the live stream on my Telegram, that link to which you can see in the description box, and I will post about live stream on our community page also. This is it for now. Have a great day and take care.